Hello snowboarders of the internet, I'm your host Avran LeFeber, and in this video we're going to be reviewing the Nidecker Sensor Team. This board features Nidecker's cam rocker profile, so camber throughout the feet and then a mellow rocker in the tip and the tail. This is going to give you all the load, pop, snap, and drive of traditional camber, while that mellow rocker is going to give you ease of entry in and out of turns, as well as a more optimal spot for presses and butters. This board's available in 147, 150, 153, 156, and 159. I rode this board at Copper Mountain on a day that had overcast skies, warmer temps, snow falling, chopped chunder, ice. Basically it was crap. It was a really crappy day, and I rode it with my Rome Black Label bindings and my K2 Thraxis boots. So this is a park board with a stiffer flex, and it kind of feels planky, but it hasn't quite reached that yet, so it's still attainable, if you will. What you do get is these sweet spots where the rocker is in the tip and the tail, and then it just stiffens up through the middle. The width of this board coupled with that stiffness make it harder to engage the torsional flex. You just notice that it takes a little bit more effort, and with this being stiffer and wider, it's stable. Like, this board is very, very stable underfoot when you're just cruising. Sure, at speeds, you're gonna get a little bit of chatter, and that's gonna start to resonate back underfoot. And if you hit lumpy terrain just due to that camber with the stiffer flex, it kind of just bounces around. It's a weird board in the sense that it's stable, but it's lively, so you do feel that kinetic energy coming up underfoot. Like, you know you can crush chunder with it, but you also know when you get on the chairlift, your feet are gonna probably be tingling a little bit if it was really icy and you were going real fast. So you got an abundance of camber and you got carbon running down the middle of this board, right? When you load it up, you're gonna feel it want to react, it wants to rebound. And then when you roll back on the tail to engage it right where that little rocker is, it acts like a springboard. This board will boost, but it takes more effort. So what you put in, you're gonna get double back. So you gotta understand that this thing will spring. But to get that double back, you gotta load it up more. You can't be lazy with it. So when you do load it up and you're a little more calculated, launching a side hit, popping off a roller, ollieing over a family of fat skiers, not gonna be a problem. When it comes to jumps, medium and large is really what this thing's about. Yes, it'll handle small features, but it really wants to go to the medium line or bigger with it. If you load it up coming off the lip, you're being calculated, you're gonna boost. The big thing to note is with that carbon down the middle, if you're not gonna load up, but you're still just gonna push into the transition, it wants to rebound the second it gets off the lip. It's gonna snap for you. This deck wants airtime. It wants to get you up in the air, so be aware of that. All right, you're enjoying this review, aren't you? So why don't you click like, and if you haven't subscribed, why don't you subscribe? While you're at it, click the bell, get those notifications. That way you're not missing any of the videos we got coming out for all you snowboarders of the internet. So you've got that rocker section, and that's the sweet spot. You wanna get your weight more over the nose or the tail of this board. You wanna get it out there and you wanna press into it hard. So you're really leveraging it out at the up kick. As such, when you do that, it's going to lock in, but it's gonna fight you. And you're gonna end up pressing a little bit harder. Speed will be your friend here. High speed butters where you're really popping into it, getting sideways, pushing it, or doing a 180, really leveraging your weight. It will hold, but then it's gonna snap out. If you're being a little more mellow and you're trying to just leverage your weight outside the inserts, whether on the nose or the tail, it's gonna look soggy. It's gonna look like shit. It's gonna wanna set down. Be aware of that. When it comes to jibbing, speed. Speed is your friend here. And you really wanna get your weight out in that nose or that tail for a press, and understand that, yeah, it's gonna lock in, it's gonna give you a deep flex, but with that deep flex, you're getting a ton of rebound. So when you hit the end, it's gonna spring you right out. Be aware of that. Going sideways, this thing's rigid and you're gonna feel it. really doesn't cradle around the feature. It's more or less a balance board act on there. That's probably gonna be a little too much for most people, and that's where like going to the regular sensor actually makes sense. This is for someone that is going to manhandle their deck. Park carves are this board's forte, and those are those short, tight, quick setup turns in between features. When you really try to drive this board, even in a medium carve or more, you notice that it locks in and that it's got power, but it doesn't really swoop. It's more like, well, you're on edge. You're gonna set up and just cruise into whatever you need. When you really try to crank this, you're pushing your knee into the center of the camber, you're laying it over. You can only take it so far before it just hits the limitations of what it can do, where it just says, nope, not doing anything more. You're not laying a Euro carve. You're not carving under this feature. So, you know, if you're doing park carves, you're doing setup turns, absolutely great. Trying to lay it over? There's better boards out there. Rider in mind. So who is this board for? It's for the big line park focused rider, someone that wants to hit the big jump, they're hitting the big jibs, they're using a lot of speed, they know how to leverage their weight and really push into the board, and they don't have a problem with that rebound. All right, do you like what we're doing over here? You want to support us further? Swing on over to Angry Snowboarder VIP and become a member. Sure, I could tell you more here, but I got a video over there that explains it so much better. This kind of feels like a Gamma APX minus the asymmetrical side cut, and with just like more response in it than anything. You really notice that even if you're being laid back, it's responsive and engaging. And when you actively engage that response, you get a ton of spring with it. This is a board for just charging hard in the park. And what's nice about this thing is that when you set it down, it's like an Airbus on the tarmac. It's just consistent and it lands. None of that Boeing shit where you're like, oh God, we're gonna die. No, this thing is phenomenal for what it is. Comparable boards: the K2 Hypnotist, the Rossignol Juggernaut, the Capita Super DOA. Binding recommendations: the Nidecker Kaon Plus, the Rome DOD, the Ride A8. All right, this has been my review of the Nidecker Sensor Team. If this isn't the board for you, why don't you check out one of the reviews for one of the comparable boards? After all, we have this deep library of reviews, and you're probably not watching as many as you should to dial in the board that you want.